Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We have David Arrington from Arrington Coaching. And David, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Outstanding. I love it. Thank you, Deborah, for that awesome introduction. Not saying that sarcastically. Deborah, I know her, so that's awesome. She's just like, hey, here's David. Love it. I'll take it from here. So let me see. Did you guys transfer it over to me so I can share my screen yet?
You are co-host.
Nice. Okay, so let me do this. Let me, share. Let me see. Can you see what I see?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So again, thanks, Deborah, for the introduction. My name is Dr. David Arrington. I am the COO of Arrington Coaching, and we have arringtoncoaching.com, and our sister site is arringtontraining.com, where we have transitioned and we're continuing to transition all of our in-person leadership training to an online platform. And as you can see, we do speaking, training, coaching, and consulting, but almost enough about me. Before we jump in, really, I want to give you what I call my 45-second intro, just so you know who I am, so it makes sense what I'm talking about. I have been a network engineer, a worldwide recruiting manager. Hold on, back up, say that. So it's not all, say that 5 times fast, right? Worldwide recruiting manager. I've been an entrepreneur, a pastor, a speaker, an author, executive coach, trainer. I have a doctorate in strategic leadership, and I'm a father and a husband. I'm the founder and COO of Arrington Coaching and Arrington Training, 15 years of executive coaching experience. During that time, I've worked with dozens of CEOs, executives, leadership teams, and organizations in a number of industries, including real estate, legal, nonprofit, communication, shipbuilding, construction, just to name a few, which gives me a very unique perspective on leadership. And if you time me, I'm pretty sure I did that in under 45 seconds. But here's the fun part. When it comes to leading online, remote, or virtual teams, that's what I did my doctoral project in. So you're in good hands today. This is one of the things I love talking about. And you're going to see that in just a few minutes as we talk about leading and engaging remote teams, because we're talking about leading remotely. So it's not just leading them, it's how do we get them engaged? And this is part one of a 2-part series. So in this part, what I really want to work on are these points. If you're following at home, why remote work is here to stay, how you can leverage remote teams to grow your business, leading remote employees, why small businesses must, and when I say must, I mean absolutely must, embrace remote work, and how to create a team environment remotely. And what I want to do is, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. Let me know if something resonates, or if you want to get a little bit more detail about it, because for the next 60 minutes, I'm pretty much going to be going at this pace. So you're going to have to slow me down if you want to ask me a question or get some more information, because I want to make sure you get the most out of this time as possible. And at the end, I got a free resource for you that I'm pretty sure you are going to be very interested in. Let's jump in. Let's just not start with remote teams and virtual teams. We've got to start where things really got interesting, which was 2020. This is a list I made. It's not an exhaustive list of all the things that happened in 2020. You'll notice at number 12 is working remotely. Any other year, that would have been a huge thing, but we had a hyper-polarized political climate. We had murder hornets. Okay, people, we had murder hornets in 2020. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Jacob Blake, and others became rallying cries in not only minority communities, but around the globe. We had the following Black Lives Matter protests, militia plots to abduct governors. The West Coast was on fire. Notice I'm limiting this just to 2020. I'm not even jumping into 2021 here. The West Coast was on fire. We had hurricanes all the way into the Greek alphabet. And for those of you keeping track at home, you know that we have 26 letters in the Cyrillian alphabet, and we went deep into the Greek alphabet. We had a coronavirus global pandemic that at the end of 2020, I believe it claimed over 350,000 lives just in the US. There was an economic meltdown. Tens of millions of people were out of work. Over 100,000 small businesses permanently closed. Get this. That's not we're coming back. That's permanently. Businesses that had been around for decades, businesses that had just come up, 100,000 small businesses closed their doors in 2020 alone, because of all the things. Well, maybe not the murder hornets, but definitely the economic meltdown, and definitely the pandemic, the global pandemic, which led to a lot of remote working. Because if you remember, just about a year ago, we all started off the year, okay, 2020 is great, we're glad it's behind us. And then just it got even worse. We were kind of like, what happened? So it was about a year ago in March of 2020 that the entire world slammed on the brakes, and we all had to figure out how to keep doing what we're doing, but not doing it together in a safe, socially distanced way. And that led to what we look at as pretty much the rise of remote working, but remote working's been around for a long time. 13, you became a reluctant homeschooler. If you had kids, it wasn't just work that went remote. It was work, life, it was, schooling, everything went remote. Then we had 9+ months of quarantine. We were masks, then we went double masked, and I'm waiting until they say triple masked, but who knows? And then we even had asteroids making flybys in 2020. The reason I bring this up, and here we are in, April of 2021. I bring this up because it's easy to forget the amount of stuff that we're still dealing with. Just leading remotely is a part of everything. It's not the total. If we forget that we're leading remotely as a reaction and response to a global pandemic where hundreds of thousands of people died just in the US, not worldwide, but just in the US, and tens of millions of people lost their jobs and hundreds of thousands of small businesses closed, then if we look at leading remotely in it just by itself, then it's not that big a deal. But when we understand how the world has shifted and how important it is to make this shift with the world, then it takes on greater meaning, and it becomes a more important topic. Because I'm going to be really clear, because I think I even have this in a slide coming up. Remote work is not going away. My argument is going to be, it's going to become more the standard as we go forward, and for good reason. But with that said, 2020 is behind us. Now we're in 2021, remembering all that we've been through. How are you doing right now? How are you handling all this? How is your business handling all this? How are you? Because we've been in this struggle mode for about a year. And for some people, that's about 11 months too long. For some people, it's 11 months and 2 weeks too long. So I step back and I always try to take a moment to take the pulse of the room. How are you? Because this is a question we don't even think to ask anymore, because this has become, and you'll find out this is one of my, I don't know if it's a hot button term, but it definitely gets me started. But when people talk about the new normal and getting back to normal and the idea of normalcy, but how are you right now? How are you coping? You can drop it in the comments if you want to. But how are you coping right now? Are you aggravated? Are you frustrated? Are you on the edge? Are you thriving, right? Because it could be a good year for your business. I'll tell you, 2020 was horrific for my business, but 2021 is looking a lot better. So I'm asking you, how are you doing right now? So I'll take 10 seconds and wait. If somebody wants to type in the chat, if you don't want to type in chat, I will move on. Better. Thank you. Better is good. Better is much better than worse, right? So if you guys don't want to jump in, cool, I'm going to keep going, but I want you to be able to answer that question for yourself, whether you feel comfortable sharing now or whether you take inventory later. You want to ask yourself, how am I really doing? And be honest with yourself. It's okay to be struggling. It's okay to be burnt out. It's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to be over it. All of that is okay, but it's not okay when we don't see the bigger picture. We don't see how much we're dealing with in the background, and that now on top of all that, I've got to run a business that I never imagined to be a remote business. I've got to run it in a remote way. I'm not a tech company. How am I running a remote team, right? That's where a lot of people are, a lot of small businesses. And that's one of the big things I want to do today is help you shift that mindset so you can make this pivot and survive and thrive. So like I've already alluded to, if not directly said, remote teams are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. 5 in 10 workers say they don't want to work in an office anymore, and your business is likely considering the pros and cons of honoring those wishes. Half of the people, and you'll hear people all the time say, oh, I can't wait to get back to work. That's only half of the response. A lot of people didn't want to go to work in the first place. They didn't like traffic. They didn't like a lot of things. So this was a good test run for a lot of people. But what I think is going to happen is small businesses are going to be the last ones to shift because they think that the way it's been done before is the way it's always going to be done. And that's not, it's never the case, quite frankly. But get this, 5 in 10 workers say, I'd rather work at home. I'm good. I don't want to go back to an office. Why? Why do I have to get dressed up to do exactly what I can do right here where I am? Now, you're going to have to take some of the things we talk about in this session and the next session with a grain of salt, because what you do in your business is going to be up to you. What I want to do is give you the principles. I want to give you the insights. I want to give you the big picture ideas that can help you shape your path going forward. But understanding that half the people out there are like, I want to go back, and half are like, I'm good. That's going to have an impact on how you hire, how you grow your business, and what you can do in the future. Remote teams are here to stay. I got a few more of these. Leaders need to draft policies and start making decisions that will enable workers to be as or more productive at home in the long term while keeping their employees' well-being in mind as well. So the idea at the beginning was, I can't be as effective, productive as I possibly can because I'm not in office. That was from a leadership perspective and an employee perspective. So what we saw early on was people were working 10 and 12 hours because they felt guilty they weren't working in an office and therefore weren't as productive. What we found out later, and studies are proving now, is people are actually more effective when they're working at home than they are when they're working in the office for a number of reasons. One, you don't have constant interruptions. Two, people have to actually schedule meetings. They can't just wander by and chit chat. Three, you don't have the chit chat that you normally have. So there are a number of reasons you want to think about this as a small business owner, because productivity, as I'll show in a little bit, is going to increase as well. 20% of people would be willing, get this. This is when I say it's here to stay. I mean, it's here to stay. Would be willing to take a pay cut of more than 10% to continue to work at home. Why? Because people love their freedom. People want to be, they want to have the flexibility that they don't always have when they are in an office environment, where they have to be somewhere 100% of the time. And you're going to see this over and over, that people want their freedom more than they want to be in an office, more than they want a commute. And that's something as small business owners we need to think about. We need to understand the time we're working in versus just looking at what we want to get done and what our business needs to have happen, and our vision for a business, if we have a vision for our business. Because you're working right now to identify the right people that are going to take you to the next level. You've got to understand what makes those new right people tick. What's important to them? How important is their freedom? What do they want out of their lives beyond their 9-to-5 job? And this is one of those critical factors that if you're not looking for it, you wouldn't know, that people are willing to take a pay cut to have more freedom, to have more flexibility, to spend more time with their families. It blew me away when I read it, but that's the truth. People will sacrifice things to have more flexibility. Get this one. And this is one I love, because this is I'm in my hot button, but I haven't told you yet. 98% of employees before, now I added the italics, I added the bold, but 98% of employees before the COVID-19 outbreak wanted to work from home at least some of the time for the rest of their careers. Understand this. COVID basically pushed it to the forefront. These technologies have been around for years. In the 90s, when I was a network engineer, I was building network infrastructure that spanned the globe. The one project I was working on when I was at Exxon was XNet. It was fundamentally our own internal internet, because when you're in a multinational company, you're always working virtually. Part of your team is most definitely going to be remote at some point. Large multinational companies have been doing this for decades. It's we small businesses who think we can grow using word of mouth advertising and basically mom and pop types of advertising to grow our business. But fundamentally, if we're going to grow businesses, we're going to have to understand the people, our clients, and our employees. And get this, even before COVID, People wanted to work from home. People, and here's the thing, I think what changed and why half of those people now are like, I'd rather work in an office, is because the change happened so abruptly. It happened so without their input. COVID happened and then everything stopped, and then they got pushed to work at home. And if you do any change management or understand how change works, people will jump on is the wrong way to say it, but people can accept change if they feel they have at least a part in it. But COVID changed everything and we had no say. We just had to participate. We just had to work at home. So what I'm saying here is, in this moment, remember, even before COVID, people wanted to work at home. It wasn't anything new. The technology has been there. The political will wasn't there, because there's a lot of money invested in the way things are right now, which is interesting because we can make more money doing things in a newer way. 85% of respondents confirm that productivity has increased in their business as a result of greater flexibility. 85% of the respondents to the survey said, hey, guess what? Productivity is up because we're allowing people to work from home. We're allowing more flexibility in how people work. And I'm giving you stat after stat after stat, because what I want you to see is that this isn't just what David says. This is what the environment is saying. When we ask the questions out into the environment, how many of you would take a pay cut? Or how much has productivity jumped? Or have you seen an increase in productivity? The business world is saying, yeah, we have. 85% of the respondents to this survey said they had seen a productivity jump, which at the beginning of the COVID crisis was the big problem, because you had leaders who were demanding that people be on Skype or Zoom or Teams or whatever technology platform they were using at the time. They literally wanted people to be on camera doing their jobs so Big Brother could watch, which was absolutely ludicrous. But what I told people then in podcasts and in interviews and things was, guess what? What COVID did was it highlighted bad leadership. What that fundamentally was a lack of trust on the leader's part, that people were doing their jobs when they couldn't see them. Right? So you can't manage by wandering around anymore. You can't just walk up to somebody's desk and see, are they doing something? You have to trust your team, and you have to change what you're measuring and what you're looking for. And we're going to talk about that later on. But understand that productivity won't fall off. In many cases, I would argue in the majority of cases, productivity is going to increase. Now, again, it goes back to what type of business you're running. It's very difficult to run a bakery in a virtual environment. I'm being honest with you. You can close the door and go to an all online platform, right? Where all you do is ship and you don't have a storefront. You can do that, but you still need people to show up to do the baking, to do the measuring, to do all of the mixing. All those things still require people to be there. So when I say all this, again, take it with a grain of salt. Listen for the principles to understand how you can apply those principles to grow your business. This is making sense so far. Thumbs up. Yes. Makes sense. Okay, cool. And if you got questions, please take a minute. Say, David, I want to know more about that. No problems. Lower expenses. 65% of respondents, I think it's the same survey, said that these flexible workspaces help them reduce capital expenditures and operating expenses, manage risk, and consolidate their portfolio. This is a part where people don't even really think about it. You think about it from a perspective of, okay, I don't have to rent somewhere, or I don't need an office space. But operating expenses and managing risk and consolidating portfolio, these are all obviously financial terms that tell you you can lower your expenses by moving to an online scenario. Again, people are willing to take an up to or above 10% pay cut just to have their freedom, which can help your bottom line, so that as you're growing your business, you can get top-notch talent, but be able to afford that top-notch talent, because the benefits you're offering may not be purely financial. You may be able to offer them the benefit of their time, which I can guarantee you, people will always choose their time over spending more time in traffic or in a commute or, at a job, versus the feeling that they have like they're working more of a gig economy. And that's what a lot of people want in today's society. Hiring and retention, which a lot of small businesses know is important, but don't often see as part of this online leading remotely perspective. 77% of global businesses are using flexible workspace policies of varying degrees to attract, if I can talk, attract and retain top talent. Major global businesses are doing this because they understand the value of having this level of benefit available for top talent. Top talent gets to write their own check. They get to say, here's who I'm working for. Most times when they're talking about top talent, these are people who have 2 and 3 and 4 job offers in front of them, and they're choosing the one that's going to most likely work with their lifestyle. That's what you're talking about with top talent. So think about this. If global businesses that are in a constant struggle for top talent understand this, as small business owners, we need to as well. I can tell you, since the start of this, I have a much wider array of talent at my fingertips. I have people now that are, my team has expanded, and I'm very happy to say they don't all show up at work. The way I designed Arrington Coaching, my fundamental vision for Arrington Coaching was always that I'd be able to do this on a beach from anywhere in the world. I never imagined I did from time to time, but it was really just an ego stroke, having my name on the side of a building and people walk in and you have this awesome lobby, all the glass and everything, whatever is in style. I always thought about that. I always thought about running my business to make me happy versus running my business to make it look like we were successful. I didn't care what, or if we ever had a building. My idea was always to do this remotely. And I've been doing this for probably on my own, probably 8 years now, 8 years. And I still have no desire to put up a shingle somewhere else. I love the way it works now because this lifestyle gives me the flexibility that these top talents want as well. And you've got to think about that as a business owner as well, but we're not getting into all that today. But I want that to be part of the vision you have for your business. How flexible is the business for you? Because as you're looking at this, you're not really going to be interested in giving people a level of flexibility you don't enjoy. Case in point, again, back at Exxon, one of my first bosses was a horrible boss, to be very frank. He worked, I think he got to the office at 8:30 in the morning and left at 6:30. And he thought everybody else should work the exact same way. I didn't want to work from 8:30 to 6:30. I wanted to work from 9 to 5. And he was upset with me because I had a different vision for my life and my job. And so obviously we clashed. Understand that whatever your vision of your business is, it's going to blend into your policies for flexible workspaces. So that's why I'm going into a lot of detail here to help shift the mindset so you can see the value in having flexible workspace policies, whether it means a complete work from home environment, which I believe, what's the name of that Upwork. I believe Upwork just went to a 100% work from home policy, right, during the pandemic. And they're like, and we're not going back. If you have a very low estimation of what working from home is, you will be unable to create policies and to give people that level of freedom. So if you understand what working from home can be and the freedom it allows, then you'll be more willing to give people that same freedom, which is why I'm taking the time here, because fundamentally, once we can shift your mindset on remote teams, you'll be able to, if more effectively, lead those remote teams and build remote organizations. Again, on employee retention, companies that encourage remote workers in the US have 25% lower employee turnover than those that don't. People stay at companies where they have flexibility, and they'll take a pay cut to enjoy that flexibility. All of this leads to greater morale, productivity, and engagement on your team. And when you're running a small business, fundamentally, the biggest word in that sentence is small, means you don't have a lot of people. So you need to have the people that you do have, you want them to be top talents, and also you want them to be engaged. This is an engaged group, people that have that flexibility and feel that they can express that flexibility in their workplace. And for small business owners, often we don't think like this. we're generally behind the curve when it comes to the latest trends and how things shape up, especially when it comes to tech, because many small business owners aren't really tech savvy, and that's okay. But in this environment, you can no longer use that as an excuse. You've got to be tech savvy. You have to be, you've got to start looking at what the bleeding edge is and see where larger companies are going, start identifying those trends so you are ready. And this is what I share with my clients all the time, my coaching clients. You've got to anticipate trends. You got to anticipate what's next so you can be ready for it, not trailing behind, hoping you don't get left out. So understand that you're going to keep more of your top talents if you move to more flexible work environments. Now, here's where I enjoy talking about this. There's been this rush back to normal. When we have this rare opportunity to shape what will be, why should we want to rush back to normal? Normal was broken to begin with. Normal was not good for the planet. Normal was not good for our mental health. When you're sitting in traffic, I, for one, show of hands, people who love traffic. No, nobody loves traffic, but we chose to do that because that was normal. We all go to work, even though we had the high-speed internet in most places. We had the technology. Zoom didn't just show up in March of 2020. It was always there. There just wasn't the political will to use it. So when people start talking about this rush back to normal, we need to get back to normal, the time it takes to get back to normal, I always shake my head and say, why are we rushing backwards? No, nothing great comes from going back. Our future isn't behind us. Our future's in front of us. And if you're looking at this moment the way I look at this moment as an opportunity to shape what's next, to become and really have a hand in the next steps, the next iteration, not just of your business, but of the way things go. We are in one of those pivotal moments in history where we get to see things tilt in a new direction. And for those of us that are constantly trying to claw back to 2019, right? There's nothing back there for us. You're never getting back there anyway. So I would say, hey, let's turn our sails with the wind and see where this is going. And as small business owners, this is what we need to be doing. We need to be redefining normal, not trying to reclaim it. We confuse normal with known far too often, which means that's what I know, so I guess that's what I want. When if I took you back to the 1800s and showed you an outhouse, right, you would not be excited about that. I can guarantee you would not be excited about an outhouse in the 1800s. But, that was known at the time. There was a point where bathrooms in the house were something new and strange, and only the rich had it. Now we take it for granted in the US and most developed countries. And that's what I'm saying. Normal is often confused with known. Last year taught us many things, and the chief of them should be that normal is fluid, and that our quote unquote normal had a ton of room for improvement. And we could talk about political things. We could talk about environmental things. We could talk about a broad gambit of reasons why our last normal was rife with issues. But that's the primary point. We get to move forward and create a new normal, make new mistakes, become better, become smarter, become faster, become more efficient, more productive, and more engaged in the future. And again, our best work isn't in our past. It's still ahead of us, because you've got to adapt. And this is, again, where I see small businesses struggle. Small business owners, because of a number of things. Being one, I can tell you, you're time strapped, you're cash strapped, you don't have all the resources you need all the time. You are just trying to figure out what you need to do next. Plus, there is the ever-growing mountain of things you have to do right now that only you can do, again, because critical word in small business is small, which means most of those things you're still doing yourself. That all of those things together keep you in a mode where you're just treading water. What I'm saying is stop treading water. Let's start swimming. Let's, swim to land. Let's get out of the water, right? Stop treading water. So what you want to do is you want to look at how you could use this moment to become a better, stronger business. Because if you don't adapt to this moment, virtual teams aren't going away. Virtual work is not going away. This is going to become the new normal. for the next, let's say, decade or so, until it gets even better. If you watch any sci-fi, virtual work is assumed in sci-fi, right? You're able to talk to people wherever they are on the globe, or different planets, different solar systems. So guess what? It's not going anywhere. You've got to adapt, because the world around you has already changed. And if you don't adapt, you may end up going under when it's completely preventable, when it's completely within your control to make the choices today that will set your business up for success tomorrow and into the future. So you're going to have to rethink. I just call this Rethink 2.0 to survive the next shift, this shift, and the next. That's right, the next shift, because you need to be thinking how fast the world turned on a dime when Corona hit, coronavirus or COVID hit, right? Everything turned on a dime, but that was just change. It was disruptive change, but it was just change. We've been seeing more and more change happen, and you need to be more and more able to work through this change effectively so that your business will continue. So you're going to have to rethink your business model, rethink your business revenue streams, your hiring practices, your market segment, your client expectations, because your clients may expect in this environment that you can pivot, because if you don't, they'll find another vendor who will. It's like that. And that's the way it is. Huh, was that Grandmaster Flash? Because it's like, was that Grandmaster Flash? Somebody look that up. If that was Grandmaster Flash, because it's like that. And that's the way it is. So vision, what is your vision for your business, and how has that vision changed because of the coronavirus pandemic, because of working remotely, because of lockdowns, because of all of the things that have happened? It was Run DMC. Thank you, Tasha. Yeah, I went back too far. I went to Grandmaster Flash, who predated Run DMC. You're gonna get a little rap anthology here, but what you get is now that's all I can hear. Now I see the my Adidas. So what you get here is you have to have a vision for your business, and that vision has to be fluid. You can see where you want your business to go, but understand that the world around you is moving so rapidly. It's changing so rapidly. And I've been telling people this for years, and not just me alone. Look at the world around you. Things keep changing. Nothing stays the same. You got a technology horizon of maybe 18 months, and that's going to keep shrinking. Your vision for your business can't be the vision that people had in 1950 or even in 2010, because 2020 is fundamentally different. We've seen a shift in wealth from big businesses to apps. Notice things have changed, and your business vision is going to have to change with it. How do you already engage with your clients online? You probably wouldn't have done any of that in 2010, but now in 2020, you're looking at social media. You're looking at what is Facebook? What are the analytics on Facebook? Google. These are names that no one cared about in 2010, but now they're names that make or break your brand in 2020. Understand your vision and understand how your team communicates, right? How does your team communicate right now in a way that makes sense for your company, and it makes sense so that you can get things done even in a virtual environment? This is one of the areas where people have struggles, because, and I think I talk about this in a couple slides, but you want to make sure that as you look at your business and how you interact, that you're making sure you keep communication and collaboration and cohesion at the top of your list, because this is one of the things that often drops off when people move into a virtual space. You can feel, separated. Communication gets a little segmented, and you're not seeing people's faces. But here, when I teach classes on, I just taught the SEC a class on clear and effective communication. And one of the things they said is, it's not the same. I can't see your face, your body language. Of course you can't see my face when my camera's off. But when my camera's on, amazingly, you can see my expressions. I can see your smile. I can see you recline. I can see you watching. I can see you intent. All of that shows up. What I need you to do is rethink your expectations for all of these things for your business, because now in a more fluid more space fluid environment, you are going to have to rethink everything about your business so that your business stays afloat. And this is just critical real world talk, because I want you to succeed. I want your business to grow. I want you to do well, but you can't do well using 2018's playbook in 2021. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. And if anything, you already know that building a business and growing a business is constant trial and error. So I'm trying to bring it back to where you are, because you're going to have to keep trying, failing, learning, repeating the entire time to iterate and grow your business. And when it comes to the vision for your business, you have a vision of whether you want to grow a huge business. Do you want something the size of Amazon? Do you want, just think about it, Amazon, again, talking about change. Think about the big brands before Amazon came in and gobbled everything up, right? You guys remember Kmart? You remember when that was the big deal, right? Blue light specials, right? All that good stuff. Kmart was out there. Look what happened to Toys R Us. They went under, literally went under, and came back on as just a virtual online store, right? And now they're just competing with one segment of Amazon. Then Walmart, even Walmart, the 800-pound gorilla in the room for so long, is struggling to keep up with Amazon, right? You've got to understand your vision for your business has to shift, adapt, and change as the market shifts, adapts, and changes. Because if you don't, you will be left behind. And it doesn't matter how big you are, you can be that big and still fail. So what you got to do is, again, shift your mindset and start measuring what matters, because for too long, people have measured butts in seats, right? If everybody's at work and everybody's sitting there and I'm getting emails, we're working. That was what people looked at for engagement. 2016 Gallup study talking about engagement for organizations across the entire United States. They looked at all 50 states, and the highest level of engagement was in Alabama. Put in the chat what you think their level of engagement was, percentage-wise. Out of 100, 0 being 0% engaged, 100 being 100% engaged, and tell me what you think in 2016 in a face-to-face co-located working environment. What was the level of engagement, the highest level of engagement they saw in these 50 states? Number between 0, 25%. Tasha, who else? Somebody jump in. Any other thoughts? Well, this is what they call dead air in the business, people. So I'm going to continue unless I see another number jump up here really quickly, and I don't. So Tasha says 25%. You're not that wrong, Tasha. Here's the thing. There was the highest in the United States was Alabama, and it was 37%. Most people estimate engagement was like 90% or 80%. And when I tell business leaders this, I say, don't look at me. Don't shoot the messenger. This was a Gallup study, 37%. We've been measuring the wrong things for so long, but businesses were just too big to fail. Things shifted, and we saw a lot of businesses struggle the last year, haven't we? We've seen big brands go under because they couldn't make the turn. If big brands like Bed Bath & Beyond, which was already on the ropes because, again, of Amazon, right? If they couldn't make the shift and they were looking at it, what hope do we have as small business owners if we're not looking at it? So we've got to pay attention and start measuring what matters. First, what is important for your business? Rethink. Remember, we're rethinking, right? Rethink 2.0. Is it more important to see people working or to get the output of that work? I would argue that seeing people work is not important at all, because you have to trust that people are getting things done. You'll see the product. You'll see the work product. It'll come back. You'll get to talk through it with them. You can do all of this virtually. It doesn't require a walk down the hallway. It doesn't require you getting up and seeing them at a water cooler. You can do this remotely. And honestly, for small businesses, this is going to be, and I talked about it, but I just want to double down on it. It's going to be such a savings a money savings element. You're going to be able to do a lot more with the same amount of money. You'll be able to hire more people because then you can hire consultants versus hiring employees. And I know some people say that's terrible, but as a small business owner, you have to hire the person you need for the job you have. And here's the thing. I am not a lawyer. I'm not the person to tell you what the difference is between a consultant and an employee. You need to look that up because you don't want to get in trouble with the IRS. I believe it's the IRS that you can get in trouble with for having paying people like consultants when you're actually treating them like employees. So you need to see how that works. But you can bring people on to do different roles, to do different responsibilities, to help you in ways that you couldn't afford a full-time person to do. So you want the benefits of them working. Do you want to have all your people working in one place or have great people working in any place? I would rather the latter because I would rather have a high potential individual that's kicking butt and taking names working, but they're working across the country, right? I may not see them, only see them on Zoom. Fine by me. I'd rather have that person working for me than have someone who's just retired in place who I can see every day. And I'm not saying that everyone you see every day is retired in place, but what I'm saying is because of a remote environment, now I can employ someone that would never be in my normal recruitment pool because otherwise they'd have to relocate. And who's got money for that? I can't relocate you. They don't want to relocate. And the only way you would get them is if they coincidentally relocated to your area. Now you have literally the entire world at your doorstep so you can hire, so you can make good decisions, so you can get the type of results you need to grow your business. This remote environment is possibly the best environment for small business owners that we've seen in decades. And it's up to us to seize this moment. But it's not the same. I hear people say all the time, David, it's just not the same. Guess what? It's not, and that's okay. It's not, and that's okay. It's not the same. And if you're struggling with change, because we've seen a lot of change. Remember, we went through that laundry list of things that happened all in 2020, and I didn't get into 2021. That's a lot of change for us to take in. And it's honestly, it is a lot. It can be overwhelming, and people have what's called change fatigue, where you just get to the point where I just can't, right? I just can't. But there's no more. There's no more space in here. I need a cool down period. And I get it. It's okay that it's not okay for you and it's not the same, but you're going to have to move to the point where you get here. You have to get here because if you don't, you may be the one who's saying or is putting an expiration date on your success or your businesses in business, established on this date. You could be the one that's saying when we go out of business, if you're not able to make the pivot, to shift your mindset and say, yes, I can leverage more resources in this virtual environment that I ever could in a face-to-face environment, because this is where the world is going anyway. You don't want to be the last person out. There's a Rip Torn line from Men in Black, the first one. There's two was okay. But he says, we're just the last ones here. We're the last ones at the party, and we got to turn out the lights. You don't want to be the last person at this party that has to turn out the lights, because that means when you turn out those lights, it's usually going to mean that you're turning out the lights on your business. You want to be able to say, yeah, it's not the same. Yeah, this sucks. Yeah, I wish it were the same, but I can't get back there. So how do I start forging a path forward? How do I go from where I am now and take my vision and shift it into something that's really going to make sense for my company going forward? And that's the question you have to ask. Not, is it the same? That's not the good question, because today is not the same as yesterday. But you want to make sure that as you're looking at virtual teams, as you're looking at teaming virtually, that you're okay with it not being the same, because you're going to have to get okay with things not being the same. So how does it work? You got to adjust your expectations and let go of this is how it's supposed to be done as a mindset. When we have this, it's got to be done this way mindset, it slows us down. I have clients that can't get out of their own way. Coaching clients, successful coaching clients that have a specific way they think it has to be done, which closes them off to all the other ways. Open your mind, say, we've got to do this now because there aren't any other options. This is the way it's going to be done going forward. And leading in this environment is similar, but it's very different. Leading remote teams requires more finesse than leading co-located teams. You can't manage by walking around. We've already established that. Your interpersonal exchanges aren't there, so you don't get the warm and fuzzies all the time. Like, you see people in a meeting and you get to laugh at a joke or an inside joke the way you normally would, because now everybody's in a little square on the screen and everybody sees the same laugh, and okay, everybody's watching me now, and that may not be comfortable. You only see people during video calls. Also, kind of different, but if people keep their videos, their cameras on, and their internet stays strong, you can actually create the same type of cohesion, different but similar cohesion in a virtual team, because there are teams that have never actually met in real life that are very, very effective. But you have to get there, and you have to believe that's something that can be done. And many of the elements we lean on to lead in a co-located environment just aren't present. Like I said, the walking down the hall, passing someone on your way to a meeting, seeing someone at the water fountain, or getting a smoke with somebody outside. Those aren't going to be there, but you can intentionally create those moments. You can intentionally create the type of environment, but you just have to plan it. You have to schedule it. It's just not going to be coincidence and happenstance, and by accident we just happen to be walking in the same direction. You actually have to get on people's calendars to make those moments happen. One of my clients is a VP at a large company. And what I do is I tell him, I know you're busy. I know you're working with your team. I know all that, but you've still got to be intentional about reaching out to other peers. So get on their calendars. Make sure you're making the time to have those personal, not work-related conversations. There are other team leads that I've worked with that actually take every Friday, and it's not happy hour, but they have like the social hour. There's like a half hour at the end of the week where, after that, guess what? You're done, go home. And they cut work a little early just to make it more engaging. So we have to just be more intentional in our leadership to create the type of bonds, the type of relationships, the type of trust that's going to be needed to work at a high level. Because that's what most people have just taken for granted for all this time, that it was easy. I could have trust. I could build trust in a co-located environment because, I see them every day. But let me be really honest with you, and you need to be really honest as well. Did you trust everybody you worked with? You didn't. But you were in the same room with them, right? You were in the same room, but you didn't trust them. I would argue you have fewer opportunities to break trust in an online environment than you do in a co-located environment, right? But you want to make sure that you are building trust, that you're creating a team and not just a group of individuals who happen to be working on some similar tasks or similar projects, because that's what you have to do. So these are some of the things you need to be aware of. You need to be aware that in a virtual environment, you're going to have to set boundaries for your team. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you're going to have to tell people to turn off their computer, stop working after 6, right? They may normally work late, but what happens when you're home, and see, I've been doing this for years, and people like me who have been working from home for years, I don't have a work home difference, right? It's all one for me. So I don't mind if I get up at 4:30 and start working, because I can take the next 2 days off. Right? It doesn't matter, because for me, it's very, very flexible like that. And when we talk about flexibility, that's flexible. That's something that you want to share that as a benefit. You get your work done and you can take the rest of the week off. Oh, you'll hire the best talent out there because they'll get the work done and then they'll take their time off. And that would be fine, because again, if we're measuring butts and seats, we're still measuring the wrong thing. But back to this, setting boundaries. You want to make sure that people aren't overworking themselves, because last year, I guarantee you, and I think the studies have borne this out, from March when we started to probably June, people were running hard. They were working 10, 12-hour days, plus homeschooling and doing everything else, because being at home, people felt like they were cheating, like they weren't really at work, like this wasn't work, right? Anybody have those feelings? Right? Yeah, it doesn't feel like work. I didn't go in. And so there was no separation between work and life. So what they ended up doing was working way longer hours, getting way more stressed out, and really running themselves into the ground, to where in June, July, you started seeing a lot of articles about Zoom fatigue, about work from home fatigue, about people being on the edge and being overwhelmed because they didn't have boundaries. So what people's leaders started coming in doing, saying, hey, guess what? Here's when I expect to see you answering emails. Here's when I expect to see you doing this type of work. You have to set those boundaries to let people know what's expected. You have to make sure that where there's an opportunity for a lack of communication, lack of connection, you're bridging those gaps. You have to make sure that you're helping people to not feel isolated. Like I mentioned, those afternoon, end of the week social meetings where we're just hanging out, celebrating personal wins, celebrating personal victories, things that are going right in your life, and just, kind of having a coffee together at the end of the week. That's something you can do. And definitely you can make your meetings far more collaborative because you're able to get more input from different people, because people feel like this is a whole different topic, and it ties into the free offer I got for you in a minute. But meetings in general, in person, have sucked for years, right? So you want to make sure that your meetings in a virtual environment are better, more collaborative, and more engaging than what we've been doing forever. So culture is everything. I told you I was going to go this speed. Am I going too fast? Well, it's too late now. We're at the end. I'm chugging along. This is what you get. Culture is everything. As a leader, you set the pace, you set the tone for your team, and you can do this in a virtual environment. Most people think you can only create culture in an in-person environment. In a virtual environment, you still are the leader. People are still looking for you to set that pace, like what we just talked about, where you're setting those boundaries and expectations on what healthy work hours are, because you care about not just the person and the work getting done, the person getting the work done, but you care about the human being that's getting the work done. And are they balanced? Are they tweaking? Are they going way too far to one side? You're paying attention to all that because you're setting up those moments where you're intentionally talking to them and finding out how they can do the best in their environment, how they can succeed in a virtual environment. So do you have some, Deborah, did you say something?
No.
Okay, cool. So culture is everything, and everything is culture. This is what most people don't get: how you welcome new members, how you encourage professional relationships, how you motivate your team and team members, how you handle or avoid conflict, how you define success, how you help your team members succeed, how you handle time zones and create inclusivity even in a virtual environment. All of this is culture, and most people don't get that. You can do this in a virtual environment. You can do this, and you have to do this. You have to create a culture, because if you do not intentionally create an online culture with a virtual team, guess what? It's going to get created anyway. And I argue there's always culture. Every organization, every group has culture. What you don't realize is most cultures go unnoticed until they go bad. I like to say they're the air of the organization. Nobody noticed them till they stink, right? So when the air of your company or the air of your organization starts to stink, that's when people start talking about culture and how we need to change culture and how we need to do this and that. But if you look at your organization from a purely task-based approach, that's where you're creating culture. Culture is fundamentally what you allow and what you don't allow. And that's that unwritten agreement between everybody on the staff. These things are good, these things are bad. When you do that, and when you understand that's culture, everything you do is culture. So even the things you aren't doing are creating culture. So if you're having meetings and you're never following up, and people can walk in and out of your meetings, and virtually, obviously, if they can come into your meeting and just kind of talk and I like to say it this way: when they can basically take up space in your meeting without saying words, that's culture. If you let people be blowhards in your meetings and they never bring anything to the conversation, you're creating a culture where there's no expectation for outcomes or results. Everything is culture. How you lead defines the culture you have, and most leaders get upset that the culture is bad without looking in the mirror and asking, how could I have avoided this? And better question, how do I rectify this? So I think we covered everything we wanted to cover. Remote teams are here to stay. You can/must leverage them to succeed during this shift and the shifts to come. One of the biggest obstacles to using remote teams is the rush back to normal. We have the rare opportunity to shape what will be, so we need to take it. Remote teams offer benefits for small business owners, but they do require additional leadership skills. It's not a huge leap. It's just some basic understandings. And that's the stuff we're really getting into next time. There are downsides to keep in mind, but like we just talked about, some of the obstacles we need to pay attention to, but they can be mitigated through awareness and good leadership. I want to say this. Here is the free offer. And if you got any questions, I'm going to leave this up here. It's fundamentally a leading meetings that don't suck free course on my site. That's it. That's my big upsell at the end. Guess what? Something free. You're welcome. So
thank you so much, David. That was very wonderful. Your energy level is just so impressive. And you shared a lot of great information. Just so that everybody knows, a survey will go out to your inbox. It'll be coming from Constant Contact. Please reply to that. It's these surveys help us continue with getting federal funding so that we can continue to be programs like this one to you.
Cool. And if anybody wants to, that's in there. And if anyone wants to connect, there's an easy way to connect with me. So we have any questions? Because I know we're right at the time, and I want to be fair and make sure we end on time. We started on time. I want to end on time. Okay. See you, Danielle.
Thank you for joining us, Danielle.
See, I'm paying attention to chat.
Yes. No, that's great. That's great.
Cool. Well, I mean, if there are no questions,
no questions. Everybody else is logged off, and I'll be sending you an email about next steps.
Absolutely.